Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. As I take a little look at YouTube and I see our viewers climbing quickly, I want to do a special shout out to all the parents, educators, and students tuning in from home. Normally, we'd be broadcasting live into classrooms across North America, so it's pretty amazing that we're still able to do this, but live into your homes. So if you haven't checked it out, we have a whole series of amazing events coming up on the website. Please do take a moment to check some of those out. And during today's event, we are going to be playing with Slido. So if you haven't used Slido before, in the chat sidebar on the right, I have shared a link to Slido, and the event code for today is lemur. And that'll bring you to a room where you can send in some questions, you can upvote other people's questions, and then we are going to have a little quiz at the end after we talk with Travis today. So I hope to see some groups shift over and join us in Slido as well. Use our chat sidebar here on YouTube to introduce yourselves, let us know where you're watching from, and of course, send us in some questions for after Travis shares a little talk with us. All right, let's get down to business. We've got Travis Steffens joining us today. He's a conservation ecologist who studies lemurs in Madagascar. His research is focused on looking on how lemur species respond to habitat fragmentation. He's also the founder and director of Planet Madagascar, conservation, education, and community development organization in Madagascar. He's an international fellow of the renowned Explorers Club and an assistant professor at the University of Guelph. Travis, it's so awesome to have you joining us live today. We're excited to dive a little deeper into the amazing place that is Madagascar.
Yeah, this is great. I'm very excited. Let's take a journey to Madagascar. So I'm just going to share my screen here so that you can all see where we're going to go today. And we're headed to, of course, Madagascar, which is almost the most incredible place in the world. It probably has to be the most incredible place. Let me just do this here. And I'm going to talk a little bit about an expedition I did in 2019. And just for those that don't know, I'm going to give you a sense of where Madagascar is. Now, I live in Guelph now, but which is near Toronto, is where you'd fly out of if you're going to go to Madagascar. And going to Madagascar, you would go across the entire Atlantic Ocean, over top of Africa, and you would end up in the Indian Ocean on the fourth largest island in the world, in the capital of this island called Antananarivo, in the middle of southeast corner of Africa there. And in the middle of last year, I went there with some colleagues, and we did an expedition around one of the national parks called Nkarafonsk. And this is a park that's way up in the northwest corner of the country. And it's one of the last chunks of dry deciduous forest. And our goal was to walk around the majority of the park. And you can see our outline of our track that we take here on the image. And that was about a 220-kilometer walk plus all of the surveys we did, which ended up being well over 100 kilometers. And we did that over the course of 2 weeks. And doing this, we had a whole international team of people from Canada, the UK, and Madagascar. We all assembled together in country to walk around this park. But to do this, you have to have an incredible amount of gear. This is just the gear for a few of us as we were assembling some of it here in Canada. We had to get all that on the plane with us to get to Madagascar, where we eventually hopped into a truck that took us to the north part of the country and settled into this place called Nkarafonsk. And this park is incredible. It is one of the last chunks of dry deciduous forest left in Madagascar, and some of the last big chunks left in the entire world. And I'll describe the forest in a moment, but it's filled with lakes. There's these beautiful canyons, or what are also known here, there are erosion scars, and great vistas in this park. One of the lakes in the center of the park is quite famous to people in the area, Lake Ravilobe. It's a sacred lake. And you can see the dry deciduous forest. It's actually very similar to our forest, where in the winter, it loses its leaves. So here, most of the trees have lost their leaves with the exception of a handful of evergreen trees. And come spring, this will all turn bright green as the leaves come back. So it's very similar to the forest we have here, which change between summer and winter, but they're changed between dry and wet seasons. So why go to a park like this? Well, it's filled with some incredible stuff. First of all, there's some lemurs. I'll talk all about them in a moment. And they live in this park and around Madagascar. But it's also a park that's under threat. This is a park that's facing issues from people that live nearby the park or people that visit the park who will go to graze their cattle in and around the park, and they'll end up burning a lot of forest. Now, what they're doing is they're doing this to raise food for their families, basically. So it's not like these are bad actors. These are just people trying to trying to improve their own situation and trying to feed their families. So solutions to this probably involve in working with these communities and working with people to find solutions that help them and also help lemurs. But the result of a lot of this burning is a bunch of forest fragments that are really small in size. And then you'll end up with situations where when the rains will come, the water will erode away the topsoils, forming scars like the crack you see in this photo, and eventually a big erosion scar, which is now a tourist destination. People come to take photos of this. And that water from this will drain out of this into a nearby river. And this river will drain water into the Indian Ocean, dumping all that topsoil that used to be in this national park to the bottom of the ocean. Now, if we look at a time-lapse image of this from 1984 to 2014, we'll see that you can basically see the outline of the park when you get to 2014, because that's where the forest is left. But if we look at it back in time, we'll see the bottom part, the southern part of the park, there's a lot of green there. And that's forest that used to be there, that used to have lemurs, that's now disappearing. So I wanted to walk around this park with my colleagues to see what was left in terms of forest and what lemurs were there. But it's not just lemurs that exist in this park. This park is filled with some incredible animals. And for example, this red-backed heron, it's one of the many species of bird. You find over 400 species of bird in Madagascar, and over half of those are only found in Madagascar. And so these are some of the creatures.
All right, looks like Travis may have frozen for a moment. So we'll give him a second to see if he can reload and pop back in with us. In fact, yep, his computer just froze. He's just gonna quickly restart and then re-enter into the event with us. So while we wait for a second for Travis to come and join us, I can see we've got some great questions coming in from students who are joining from home. It's like Joseph and Mia and Miles and Janet, and looks like Grace as well have sent in some cool questions. So we'll make sure Zach sent in one too. Nathaniel, so we'll make sure that we work in some of those questions. As well, if you haven't joined already, up at the top of the chat, you can see I shared a link to Slido. So if you head over to Slido and use the event code LEMUR, you can join in there and take part in the quiz that we're going to do at the end of Travis's talk, and we'll see who comes out on top knowing the most about lemurs. If you slide over to that event right now, you will see that there's a poll question over right now asking how much you think you know about lemurs, and so far 27% of our viewers think they know a lot about lemurs, where most are following down in kind of 1 and 2, like maybe they know a little bit about lemurs. While we do wait for Travis to come back and join us, I'm going to share a link here. Travis runs a really cool nonprofit called Planet Madagascar. So I'm going to share the link to the nonprofit there. So if you have a little bit of time after the event today, jump in to his website and check out some of the awesome work that he's doing with Planet Madagascar. I'm just going to shoot Travis a quick message that he just needs to pop back in when he can. All right. One other thing that I want to share as well, while we have a minute here, is we have a full slate of events today. So after we wrap up talking biodiversity and lemurs with Travis at 11 o'clock Eastern, we have a trip to the Toronto Zoo. So we're going to check out animal movement with the Komodo dragon and the tree kangaroo. So you're going to want to stick around for that. If you're into a little adventure action, at noon, we'll be talking to George Karunas. George Karunas is an explorer and adventurer, travels around the world, chasing storms, documenting volcanoes, and he's going to talk specifically about some of his storm chasing adventures, particularly tornadoes. At 12:30, we're going to head to Costa Rica for a little virtual field trip to the Toucan Rescue Ranch, and we're going to hang out with some amazing sloths. So you don't want to miss that one. The Toucan Rescue Ranch is always a ton of fun, and we get to see some amazing creatures, native Costa Rican wildlife, and the sloths are pretty darn cute. And then wrapping up the day, we have 2 events at 2 o'clock to choose from. We have an Explorer classroom with National Geographic and an explorer named Shannon Switzer Swanson. And then we also have a science communication story time with Mallory Lindsay. And Mallory is known as the curious conservationist, and she travels all around the world, turning fears into fascination by sharing true stories behind nature's creepy, crawly, gross, and scary animals. So that should be pretty cool. We've got a full day of really awesome events that we can tune into today. So let's give Travis another minute or two to come in and join us. And we've got some great questions that have come in already. So we'll make sure that we work in some questions about how lemurs give birth, so maybe how many young they give birth to, how big lemurs can grow, the lifespan of lemurs, some of their predators, the different types of lemurs. I think you'll be surprised. There's a lot of different types of lemurs, and most of which I bet most tuning in today haven't heard of before. And we'll also talk a little bit about what lemurs eat. That seems to be another question that's come in a few times. Oh, and I think we have Travis back. Hey, Travis, you're just on mute.
There we go.
All right, welcome back, my friend. I was just talking to them a little bit about your website, Planet Madagascar, and the awesome work that you do.
Fantastic. Well, I'll jump right back into where I was. Let me just share my screen and see if we can go from there. All right, so how's that? Looks like we got it running now.
Yeah, we were just at, I think, one of those little herons, that little night heron, maybe.
Cool. I'll zip over to the birds and we'll go from there. So yeah, so the birds in Madagascar are incredible. And one of the next ones I'm going to show you is some pretty beautiful looking birds. We've got they've got this heron that I talked about. They also have birds that are only found in Madagascar called the vongas. The one I'm about to show you, once the computer catches up here, is a sickle-billed vonga, which they call the crybaby bird in Madagascar, and it makes that's obviously called that because the sound it makes sounds like a baby crying, and they move in groups of 20 or 30. The next two birds are paradise flycatcher on the left with a beautiful blue eye ring, and then the crested drongo on the right, which is another fantastic bird that's basically a bird that mimics other birds, so it makes all sorts of incredible calls. And the next one I call the Lady Gaga bird because that blue caruncle with that indiglow and purple eyeshadow growing around the eye. And this is a bird that's only found in Madagascar, and it's known as the crested kua. But it's not just birds that you find in this park. Here's a group of insects. It actually looks like a flower, maybe some moss or fungus, but this is a group of insects that cling to this tree. They eat the nectar from the tree, and they actually poop sugar. And lemurs, like the mouse lemur and birds, will actually come and feed off of the insect's poop, which is an incredible thing. And they look like a Martian with a shredded wedding dress when you look at them up close. And that's not even the most incredible part. The fact that this is a sugar pooping insect that looks like a Martian is actually more incredible, because this is just the juvenile form of this creature. This thing actually turns into a red leaf bug. Whoops, I just closed my thing, but it turns into a beautiful red leaf bug. And I'll zoom back into there now. And this is the adult form of that insect. So that's pretty incredible. But what about all the other stuff? Well, there's a web throwing spider that you can find in this park. Instead of creating a web that goes across an area catching insects, this will actually make a beautiful net and throw it at insects, kind of like Spider-Man in the comic books. Besides insects and arachnids, we also got lizards in this park. In fact, half of the world's chameleons are found in Madagascar, and here's one of the largest chameleons in the world. The next one I'm going to show you is probably my favorite because it's the best schnoz in the animal kingdom. This is the rhinoceros chameleon. And chameleons are famous because they can change their color. They can also move their eyes in different directions, but they also have an amazing ability to throw their tongue. So let's watch a quick slow motion video of a chameleon getting some lunch. So here's the chameleon about to launch its tongue. Boom, the entire tongue and grabs onto the insect. I like to call them first shrimp. It may seem gross to eat insects, but shrimp are kind of similar. And so they're filled with, this park is filled with incredible stuff. And of course, Madagascar is known mostly because of its lemurs. There's over 110 different species, and they range in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And I'll talk about a few of them in a moment, the ones that occur in the park. But just to give you an idea of the diversity of them, you can see a bunch of them here. And in the park that we went to survey, there's 8 different species, 7 of which I put on the screen here, and I'll talk about each one in turn. 5 of which are endangered, but they include 2 types of mouse lemur, which are the top 2 left ones. On the right is the mongoose lemur. Below them on the left is the shifaka, the Coquerel shifaka. Then you have a brown lemur, then you have a woolly lemur, and then you finally eventually have the sportive lemur. And what's missing from this photo is the next one, which is a very unusual primate that actually hibernates. It hibernates almost 9 months of the year. It's the longest hibernating animal in the world, and it's called the dwarf lemur. And it lives in that hibernation period.
All right, so I think Travis is having some tech difficulties today. I think his computer is not cooperating at all. So we'll give him a minute to come and join us again. And then hopefully once he wraps the presentation and just comes back for the Q&A portion, hopefully that'll help his computer from freezing up again. But really do pay attention to this little lemur part, because we are going to have a little lemur quiz once Travis finishes sharing with us. And then from there, we will go to some Q&A action. So the poll is still open on Slido about how much do you think you know about lemurs. And in fact, I'm going to put that poll on pause, and I'm going to pop another poll up here. And I want to see what's one word that comes to your mind when you think about lemurs. I'm going to open that poll up. There we go. That should be open now. So let's see what words come to the top here. One word that comes to your mind when you think about lemurs. So it could be anything. It could be awesome. Could be amazing. Could be the movie Madagascar. Whatever comes to your mind. Let's see some of those answers that start coming in, and I'll read some of the top answers as they start coming in. So we've got furry, we've got cute, we've got creepy. And if Travis talks about one species in particular, the ayeaye, I think you'll see where creepy can come from, because it's quite an interesting looking lemur, the ayeaye. If you have a chance now, jump on Google and do a quick search of ayeaye, A-Y-E, A-Y-E. They are cool looking lemurs. So we'll leave that poll open for a few more minutes and see what other kind of words come in via Slido. And then I can see we have some questions. So don't forget to use the question bar in the Slido as well. You can send in some questions and you can vote for other people's questions. I can see someone wants to know whether lemurs can swim or not. And I don't know the answer to that. So we're definitely going to ask Travis that when he comes back. And then you can also vote other people's questions to the top as well. And it looks like we've got Travis again.
I'm back. Not sure what's going on, but I'm here.
All right, no worries, dude. Sometimes technology just doesn't cooperate.
All right, here we go. Let me click back into our dwarf lemur. It's where we left off.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we are. So these guys hibernate. And the next one I'm going to show you actually is not known in the park. It's called the ayeaye, but we wanted to go find out if it was, because in recent expeditions, people have been finding this weird lemur all over the place. So we are hoping to find it, and this is what they look like, these creepy, weird little lemurs with this fantastic sort of hairstyle. And if I can get this video to play on the side here, you'll see exactly what they do. They act like a woodpecker. There are no woodpeckers in Madagascar, so something has to behave like that. So they'll tap the tree, trying to listen for a hole, And in that hole, they're hoping there's going to be a grub. And once they find a hole that has a particular sound, they'll drill in with these beaver-like teeth. And as they zip into it, they'll expose the hole and they'll stick that ridiculously long middle finger down the hole and they'll scoop out their breakfast. And here's got its grub here. It's going to stick it out. And to them, this is a tasty treat. It's like ice cream. There he goes, chewing away, happy as can be. And that's probably one of the weirdest lemurs you might see in Madagascar. So we've seen all sorts of, all the different ones, and here's what they look like up close. So this is the mouse lemur. It's the smallest primate in the world. It fits in the palm of your hand. It's about the size of an egg. And these guys were kind of notorious for coming to steal our bananas. They'd eat one bite of every banana. We've also got the sportive lemur, which makes fantastic jumps through the sky, but they do this at night. You can see their big eyeballs allow them to see at night. When they're afraid, they'll hide in tree holes like this during the day, and then if they get scared, they'll sink down into the hole. To me, I think they kind of look, as my friend described them, a furry little Yoda. Now we've got them hiding in this hole, and then you see the Kokorel shafaka, one of the furthest jumping animals in the world. This thing can clear gaps in trees up to 8 to 10 meters. And here's one jumping from one mango tree to the next. And when they hit the ground, they have this funny way of walking, and it's kind of like a kangaroo practicing kung fu. And they do these strange leaps, and it's because they're not used to walking on the ground. They use those powerful hind limbs for leaping between trees. They're called vertical clingers and leapers. We have brown lemurs, which are quite important because they're important seed dispersers. They eat fruits, swallow those seeds, and they'll go away into the forest somewhere, and they'll deposit those seeds in their poop. And that creates a little package, a package of fertilizer that helps grow the seed in the middle of the forest, allowing them to disperse trees throughout the forest. This next one here is a mongoose lemur. So it's actually a critically endangered lemur where the males and females have different colors. Lemurs are kind of unusual because many females are actually dominant over males. In fact, some of them are a little bit larger, and they can dominate the movements of the group, which is quite different from many other primate species. And this primate species is unusual where the males and females have different coloration. So the males have the orange chin and the females have this white chin. So when we did this expedition, we had to take the road less traveled. In fact, there are some roads around this park. Some of them were better and some of them were worse. The best one was in the middle there. You can see that it actually had a little bit of asphalt left over from probably 50 or 60 years ago. But most of the tracks were just made by ox carts, and they circumnavigated around the whole park. When we weren't walking on tracks, we often ran into water, and hopefully we would find some bridges. Something like this would solve a problem like that. But more often than not, we found ourselves walking through water, and more water. What ends up happening is your feet get really wet, and then you have to put those boots back on and head back into the trail and hope for the best. Other things that you'd encounter is grass, which seems easy, right? It's nice, easy to walk through grass, but you have this type of grass that grows in the area that's very fire tolerant. It has these seeds that needle into your socks that can be quite frustrating. And so we spent a lot of time walking through grass. And being a tropical deciduous dry forest, there's a lot of sand. And so we spent a lot of time going on sand. So I could say about 100 of those 200 kilometers were spent walking on some sort of sand, not always hard packed either. So we got water, we got sand, we got grass, we've got it all. So we ventured across the whole park, like I said, looking for these lemurs. We ended up making camp in different areas, sometimes by water, sometimes a little bit further away. And from those camps, we would descend into the forest and look for lemurs. So what did we find when we were doing this expedition? Do we end up seeing any of these lemurs? Well, this is what we were looking for, all 7 of these, plus the other ones that I mentioned before. And so we've got the mouse lemur. We definitely saw the gray mouse lemur and its a cousin that lives in the area, the golden brown mouse lemur. Both of those we found. We also found the mongoose lemur in one particular part of the park. We found the Kokorel shafakas, these massive, these lemurs that do the massive leaps. The brown lemurs, which are good at seed dispersal. I didn't talk much about them, but we also found woolly lemurs, which have these big, enormous eyes that allow them to see at night. And they have this really thick, woolly fur on them. And eventually, of course, we saw this furry little Yoda, the sportive lemur, as we were doing our treks. But what we didn't find, these are the 7 of the 8. What we didn't find is we didn't see any of these dwarf lemurs. And the reason for that was that these lemurs hibernate, like I mentioned before, through most of the year. So they weren't available when we were there. And we didn't see any sign of the ayeaye, unfortunately, so we didn't catch them all. If we looked at this, the landscapes, we saw lots of impacts. There's fires, humans cutting down trees and making charcoal. And so we saw a lot of that throughout the park. And as we went from camp to camp, we saw different lemur species. So almost everywhere we found those mouse lemurs. Some places we found those sportive lemurs. Some places we found the brown lemurs. A few of those ayeayes in similar places. Very few places did we actually find the shafakas, and only one place did we find the mongoose lemurs. And so it was interesting to see how few species we saw throughout the entire trek at individual camps. But if you combine all of it together, we saw almost all of them. And so you can see this. Sorry, these 2 places I've highlighted are the zones with the highest biodiversity of lemurs left. So what did it look like? Well, before the expedition, we were all healthy and ready to roll. And then after the expedition, we were all dirty and tired and missing a few pounds as we crossed the finish line. It was very exciting to do it, and I of course want to thank all the funders who helped us do that expedition. And I think I'd love to take some questions from you. Hopefully my computer won't crash.
All right, awesome, Travis. If you want to come back from that screen share, we will start talking to our live viewers. And we've got a great group joining us today and lots of students at home sending in questions. They're definitely super curious about all kinds of different aspects about lemur life. We are going to do the quiz a little bit later, Travis. While you were doing a quick reset, we had them send in one word that came to their mind about lemurs, and we got cute and trees and creepy and magical and big-eyed, and then monkeys. So we got a mixture of different words about what people think about those lemurs. All right, let's jump to the Q&A action. So scan back to the top and let's start some of these questions. Okay, so first one we're getting here. There we go. Charles wants to know about what lemurs eat. So I'm sure different species eat different things, but can you tell us about a few different species and what they might be found munching on?
Yeah, that's great. So the small little mouse lemurs, there's tiny little things. They're omnivorous, so they eat all sorts of stuff: insects, flowers, fruits, and all the stuff they can shove into that mouth. You have the shafakas that leap. They eat leaves, so they're leaf eaters. And I mentioned the brown lemurs. They're part of what we call the true lemurs. Many of them are frugivores, or so meaning they eat fruit. So you got the whole spectrum. There's no carnivorous lemurs. The ones that eat insects also eat other things as well, but mostly fruit eaters, leaf eaters, and omnivores.
All right. So Grace is curious about a lemur lifespan in the wild. On average, how long can a lemur live?
Oh, another great question. The small ones in the wild, probably around 10 years. In captivity, longer than that. The larger ones, up to 20, maybe 30 years, even in the wild, definitely in captivity, but probably around 20, 25 years in the wild. It's hard to say. It's hard to follow them for that long because they actually live much longer than you think.
All right. Zachary's curious about, we've talked about the smallest lemur. How big can a lemur get?
Oh, well, there used to be a lemur that went extinct a few hundred years ago, maybe about 1,000 years ago, called the giant lemur, and it was the size of a gorilla, so about 160 to 180 kilograms. But the largest lemur now is what they call an indri, similar to the shafaka that does big, massive leaps, and they're about 12 to 15 kilograms. So they're relatively small, but they kind of look like a 2-year-old in a panda suit.
All right, fair enough. So a question that was asked just now is about swimming. So Winston is curious, can a lemur swim?
Ooh, I have never seen any video of a lemur swimming. I imagine if they were put in water, they probably could, but they generally will avoid water to go into. So I actually don't know the answer to that, and I think that would be a good thing for you to study one day. Swimming lemurs.
All right, fair enough. Uh, let's see. Several students are asking about the speed that lemurs can move through the trees. How fast can a lemur, I don't know, let's say if it was in a hurry, cover, say, 10 or 20 meters?
Well, those shafakas are insane. When you take a step, you take a meter long step. When they take a step, it's 8 meters. So in 3 steps, they're 24 meters away from you, and suddenly they'll disappear in the forest within a few seconds. So it's amazing how fast they really are.
All right. So Janet just sent in a question. She's wondering about the predators of lemurs.
Oh, there's a lot of interesting predators. There's harrier hawks like we have in North America, but they specialize in hunting lemurs. There's a few other raptors like owls will hunt some of the small mouse lemurs. I've seen a snake that had eaten one of the woolly lemurs. And there's also a thing called the fossa. If you remember the cartoon Madagascar, they're kind of mongoose-like cats and they're neither mongoose or they're actually more closely related to mongoose than cats that live in Madagascar, and they specialize in hunting lemurs, and they can jump from tree to tree as well. And they also exist in this park that we went looking for. I've only seen one once, but they are amazing creatures and definitely lemur predators.
All right. Let's jump into the Slido room and see what kind of questions we have popping in here. Let's see. I think we've tackled most of these, but Ben wants a little more specifics on the mouse lemur. What size can they get to?
So you have them going from about 40 to around 100 grams. So that's from 1 to 2 eggs in terms of size. Once they get above that size, you see other lemurs, because we have dwarf lemurs and we have giant mouse lemurs. So they can be there's different types of lemurs that are bigger, but these lemurs are diminutive, and they also jump as well, but they do it by leaping on 4 limbs. And they kind of remind me of a kid during Halloween. They're just bouncing from tree to tree, trying to get their next sugar fix in terms of flowers or nectars or some other food if they can find an insect or something like that.
All right. So you just talked about the fossa, and Matthew wants to know if the fossas are rare.
The fossas are extremely rare. Like many larger predators, they have a massive home range, and they're also very cryptic. So they're secretive. So they'll hide quite easily. In fact, I have spent years in Madagascar and in a place where there are fossa, and I've only seen one of them. So they're very, very rare to see when you're in country, and even when you study them. People who research them have a hard time seeing them.
All right. I like this question from Matthew. Matthew wants to know if, sloths almost have like a tiny ecosystem that grows in their fur, algae and moths and things like that. Does anything similar happen with lemurs, or do they move too fast?
That's a great question. I think lemurs move too fast. Even the slower ones are still fast moving. But like all animals, they have their own microbiome inside their gut. And different lemurs have a different microbiome growing in their gut and are affected differently by the different types of food they eat.
All right. So yeah, speaking of sloths, 12:30 today, tune in to our second channel. So if you search the initials for Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, EBTSOYP, and the number 2, you can find our second channel, and we'll have an event live in Costa Rica with the sloths at the Toucan Rescue Ranch. You don't want to miss it. They're pretty darn cool. So Travis is curious about, obviously plans have changed, but what was your scheduled next adventure, or what would you like to do on a future expedition?
So the next trip up to Madagascar, we're going to look at disease transmission between people, lemurs, and the livestock that people have, domestic animals. And a lot of people are starting to learn now about how animals can give diseases to humans, but that actually can go the other way. And because lemurs are endangered, we're looking to find out, are there any human diseases that lemurs are getting that's impacting their survival?
All right. Travis, I think it's time. Let's jump in and let's do the little quiz, and then maybe we'll take one or two more questions to wrap things up. So for those who are in the Slido room already, I'm going to activate the quiz. You just need to pop in and add your name. I'm going to put the link to the quiz one more time in the chat sidebar. So if you go to that website and use the event code LEMUR, that will take you in. Now, Travis answered, I think he answered all these questions during his talk today. So if you were paying attention, you should be ready to go. So let me turn the quiz on and then I can watch everybody jump in. So it's there now. You should be able to find it in the Slido room, and I'll be able to see your, yep, numbers are climbing already. Gracie's in, Cole, Elliot's in. So people are joining the quiz. Each question, you're going to have 20 seconds to answer, but you need to answer quickly, because the quicker you answer, the more points you'll get. So we've got Winston's in now, Joseph is in, Ben's in. So we'll give you about another, maybe we'll get Travis to answer one more question while people are jumping into the quiz. Okay, here's a good one. So Ben is wondering, how long do lemurs stay awake during the day?
Ooh, that's a good question. So we have three types of lemurs. We have diurnal, nocturnal, and cathemeral. So diurnal lemurs will spend most of the daylight time awake. So from say 5:30 a.m. all the way down to 6:30 p.m. The nocturnal or nighttime will sleep most of the day, maybe checking on their surroundings a little. And then the cathemeral, which means they switch between day and nighttime, depends on the season. So when they're nighttime, they act like the nighttime animals. When they're daytime or diurnal, they act like the daytime animals. So most of the day, if they're daytime animals, they'll be awake.
All right. Here we go, my friends, in Slido. We've got a good group that's just joined. I am going to start the quiz now. So the first question is going to come up, and then you will have 20 seconds for each question. So the first question is up. Which lemur is the smallest primate in the world? So 15 seconds left to answer that question. I can see a bunch of answers coming in. And so far, Travis, it doesn't look like we tricked them yet, but we'll see. 5 more seconds. All right. Overwhelmingly, Travis, the correct answer, the mouse lemur, was selected. 89% of our participants in the quiz went mouse lemur.
Good work, everybody.
All right, next question's loading up now. 20 seconds. What jumps the furthest? So your choice is the frog, the cheetah, the sifaka, and the kangaroo. Let's see what happens here. I can see a few are jumping into the kangaroo bandwagon. Nobody's going for cheetah. All right, our time is up, and 81% went with sifaka, followed by kangaroo at 19%. Good work. Everybody tuning in. Next question is loading up. Oops, there we go. Which are dominant in most lemur species, the males or the females? So let's see how well people were paying attention to this one. Oh, I think we got them, Travis. All right, last 5 seconds. Oh, right at the buzzer, Travis, it went 50-50 out of our participants. Travis, what's the right answer?
It's actually most lemur species, females are dominant, and this is a very interesting area of research that people will be exploring further.
All right, very cool. One last question to wrap up the quiz, and we'll see who the lemur champion is. Which lemur fills the ecological niche of a woodpecker in Madagascar? So which lemur acts kind of like a woodpecker, doing its thing, searching for grubs in the tree bark? 5 more seconds. All right. Well, Travis, it appears that our audience was paying attention today. 74% went with the ayeaye, which is a super cool lemur, and maybe the reason why some people chose creepy as their word to describe lemurs.
Totally, yeah, they are creepy.
All right, jump into the leaderboard. Elliot, first place, 4 out of 4, and he did it in 25 seconds. Benjamin, 4 out of 4, he did it in 30 seconds. And our third place is William Carreri and William, 4 out of 4, and he managed it in 36 seconds. So good job, everybody. We have a whole bunch of lemur experts out there. Travis, pretty darn cool.
Awesome. This is fantastic.
All right. Well, I think we can work in at least 1 or 2 more questions. And so the hero Brian would like to know, can or do people keep lemurs as pets? Maybe like the mouse lemur or something.
You know, some people do actually keep them as pets, but lemurs make terrible pets for 2 reasons. One, lemurs belong in the wild, and it's a place that they should be. They're not really captive animals. You know, they don't do well in places where they're not well taken care of. Zoos, you know, are maybe a place you'd find lemurs, but having them as pets is not great. The other reason is that they can be a nightmare. Primates are very smart, and they go to a bathroom a lot. So having one as a pet means you're going to be cleaning up a lot after taking care of these things, and it's just not great for them. So I wouldn't recommend having a lemur as a pet.
All right, fair enough. So as we get close to the end of our event today, I'm going to add a link one more time. This is a link to Travis's site, Planet Madagascar, where you can dive a little bit deeper into Travis's work. Travis, tell us a little bit about where the name Planet Madagascar came from.
Well, the idea was that it's like a world in an island in Madagascar. Everything you see there is only found there. It's like you discover a whole new planet. And so what happens on this planet or this island is a reflection of what could happen to the rest of the world. So that's why we called it Planet Madagascar. This idea that it was a whole world in an island, and that what happens there is a preview to the rest of our entire planet.
All right, very cool. I'm going to share another link in the chat sidebar now. This will take you directly to all the events that we're running through Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. You're going to see there's at least between 40 to 50 live events coming up in the next 2 weeks, and we have lots more cool events to announce as well. And Travis, one more question to wrap things up for today. Let's take a quick look in the Slido room and see if anything's kind of bumped up to the top here. Okay. Let's wrap this up with the question. This is a question about lemur's eyes. Someone's noticing that they're forward facing, they're really big. What are some of the reasons for this?
That's actually a great question. It's actually one of the parts of what defines a primate, and this is having forward-facing eyes, and that's so that you can have stereoscopic vision, so vision that overlaps, so you can judge distance. And a lot of primates need that because we move in a 3-dimensional environment like trees, and so it allows us to navigate those environments. Also allows us most of them have a variation of color vision to some degree. Allows us to identify different types of food. And so it's one of the features that define primates, although other species like predators also have binocular vision like that, probably because they need it to be able to zero in on their prey. All
right. So I've posted a couple more links. Follow us on Twitter to keep up to date with all the events that are coming up. Also subscribe to the YouTube channel so you'll get notifications when events do go live that you can tune into. Want to give a huge shout out to the YouTube crowd today. Thanks for playing along on Slido. Thanks for answering the polls and jumping into the quiz. Really cool to see so many students becoming little lemur experts out there. And then Travis, a huge thank you to you today. Thanks for taking some time to hang out with us, bring us to the amazing place that is Madagascar. And we look forward to having you join in again, especially after another expedition, which I hope will be sooner rather than later.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for listening in.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody. We are going to sign off for today.